So let me make some points very briefly and clearly so that then we can discuss them. If we look at the disorders of muscles in India, ours is a huge country with so many people and a huge diversity of the genetic stocks, the cultures and customs. And by virtue of that, it is really impossible to have an epidemiological good quality study throughout the country or even throughout the state. And therefore, what we really have are only small hospital-based studies. For patients, it's important to know that hospital-based studies are not as good as the population studies because you only get to see what is coming to the hospital. So we have a gross shortage of information about myopathies in India in terms of what exists in our country in terms of population studies. We have some information about some of the existent myopathies and which are the myopathies that have been studied reasonably in small hospital-based studies up till today. The Duchenne and the Becker muscular dystrophies are perhaps the most common and perhaps the best studied in the country. As you know, in adulthood, the limb girdle muscular dystrophies are most common, out of which calpainopathies, dysferlinopathies, sarcoglycanopathies have been studied. And we have come to know for the last 15, 20 years that a whole lot of people have the GNE myopathy that looks like a limb girdle muscular dystrophy. There is some data on myotonic muscular dystrophy, facioscapulohumeral muscular dystrophy, and some congenital myopathies. Now, what are the problems that we are facing? The data is very limited. Population-based data is impossible to get at this stage. The genetic diversity is one of the issues. And of course, we have resource limitation. So I am a clinician and I work in hospitals, but I have been in this field for over 3 decades now. So I think rather than targeting blanket studies for the whole country or for the whole state about different diseases and trying to know them, I think it is important to do focused work in our country, which will have outputs rather quickly. So focused work on selected issues, and I'll give you example of calpainopathy in the Agarwal community, where you have only 2 founder mutations, and therefore our geneticists or our researchers have only 2 variants to work on, which is so much more easier than saying, look, we will work on calpainopathy en bloc. And similarly in GNE myopathy in India, thanks to Dr. Alok Bhattacharya's work, we know that one variant, the VAL 727, is almost universal in Indian people, barring those who come from Rajasthan, and the second variant changes. So again, focusing on selected issues is very important. Through focused patient groups, the empowerment of research scientists can occur, as was alluded to by Alok Bhattacharya. And I think awareness is the next important. Today, families of muscular dystrophies really suffer because there are very few centers where they can actually go and get diagnostic information. And they also really go a winded way before they reach a point where some information for the disease can be provided to them. So I think an organization like IAMD, together with clinicians, researchers, lay people, and people who are interested in the welfare of muscular dystrophy, will need to create a central source of information where a muscular dystrophy patient can go and get the information that he or she requires rather easily and doesn't have to go through a winded way. Like Dr. Vishwanathan said, registries maintained by national agencies, extremely important, and that includes the natural history studies. And I strongly urge that patients and family participation in research initiatives, which Alok mentioned. See, generally, patients leave things to doctors. But if you look at the scenario in muscular dystrophy, doctors working in their own hospitals can reach the level of providing you with a diagnosis and then generally putting you on to treatments which are physiotherapy, and in some conditions where there are medicines available, they'll give them. But they can't go beyond that. So again, like Alok said, and like Vishwanathan said, the focus or the seat of the movement has to move from clinical doctors in the hospitals to patient and family initiative, where they decide, they come together, they generate funds, and they direct the research which is beneficial to their own good. And doctors come in as part of the wheel. I think when this happens, we will see a lot of movement in India. And like Vishwanathan said, I completely agree with him that the time is right for us in India. We have practically all the diagnostic modalities that we need. We people are very good in information technology and binding together. It's just that all these pieces of jigsaw puzzle have to come together so that our efforts become successful. So I think the key is joint work with the thrust being taken by the patient organizations and supported by these scientific individuals. So with that, let me wish a lot of strength to IAMD. They're doing fabulous work. And at national level, if we can have a coordinated effort of various muscular dystrophy societies in the country, I think that's probably a big building block. Again, I would like to thank Sanjana for asking me to participate. I actually had my tickets and web check-in and everything, but I couldn't attend. Maybe for next time I'll be there. Thank you very much for arranging this, and thank you very much for asking me to be here. Thank you.